What's up guys, today's video is going to be all about drawing figures specifically from reference. This is kind of in the same vein as my master study video that I put up recently. The idea here being if you want to improve your figure drawing skills, you can do that by looking at professionals' figure drawings and copying them to learn from them. So you can see here on the left, this is a drawing done by artist David Finch, and on the right I am drawing it. Now it's important to note that I'm just looking at it and drawing it freehand. But later on, I'm going to show that you can actually also trace over the drawings in order to learn from them if they're a little bit too difficult. For this first one, it was a little bit easy for me. It was kind of in my comfort zone, but you can see that I didn't just draw it once. I ended up drawing it multiple times in order to ingrain it into my memory to use it later on when I'm trying to draw something from imagination. This next one I did was also kind of easy, but I focused more on the anatomy than I did the overall figure. And that poses its own challenges, so it still ended up being a worthwhile exercise for me. And then I did another one, but I had both arms raised up, and I wanted to see if I could edit the anatomy to make that work as well. This third one I did was a lot harder than the first two. This sitting down pose with a lot of foreshortening was actually extremely challenging for me, and you can see that I go back and forth trying to fix the arms and fix the legs many times over. I spent probably 10 to 15 minutes on that one alone, and then by the time I got to the next one, I was kind of burnt out on that pose, and I didn't want to spend too much more time on it, so I just quickly tried to get it down, and then I moved on to the fourth reference picture, but I definitely want to return to that sitting pose to really try to nail it. And something I really want to emphasize, don't just draw these poses and then move on to the next one. Repeating them multiple times, even trying to do them from memory, is really the best way to go about doing this kind of study. For this fourth picture, I really like this pose, and it's something that I definitely want to remember and apply to my future drawings. So I actually went ahead and drew this one 3 times. The first one I was looking at the photo reference, but the other two I was just doing it from memory. And even though the second and third time I drew it, it was with less detail, I can now use this pose because it's part of my visual library, which is really the whole point of this exercise. And I did 2 more. This one of Nightwing, this pose is a really difficult pose to pull off because of the high angle and because of the extreme foreshortening. So I actually copied over the picture, I traced over it, to get a framework that makes it a little bit easier to understand the pose. After that, it was much easier to draw freehand. I can't say I committed this particular pose to my visual library, but doing stuff like this, challenging yourself, is definitely going to advance your abilities. The final one I studied was this one of Batman, and this is not a incredibly difficult pose, but I always struggle when it comes to the legs when they're bent up that way, so I also traced over this one, and it also made it easier to do when I did it in freehand. And I just want to remind you guys that tracing is totally acceptable if you're using it to learn, but you never ever want to trace something and claim it as your own original drawing. That's going to conclude this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider leaving a comment and subscribing. Until next time.